It all began as what seemed like a harmless and slightly annoying habit. The family's dog, a loyal, friendly golden retriever named Max, had suddenly become obsessed with one particular corner of the backyard. No matter how many times they tried to stop him, scold him, or even fill the hole he created, Max would return to that same spot over and over again. At first, they laughed it off. Maybe he had buried a bone there and forgotten about it. Or perhaps he smelled something beneath the earth. A rabbit, a mole, or some other curious scent that only a dog's powerful nose could detect. But as the days passed, their laughter turned into concern. Max's behavior became more intense, more focused. He wasn't just digging, he was fixated. He would scratch at the dirt until his paws were raw, refusing to be distracted even by his favorite treats or toys. The family started watching more closely. Max wasn't acting like his usual self. He didn't want to go on walks. He barely responded when they called his name. His eyes were glued to that patch of earth like it held some deep, dark secret. And the strangest part? The digging never seemed to stop, no matter how much ground he moved. It was like he knew something was down there, something important, something no one else could sense. And then one day, they decided to dig with him, and their world changed forever. At first, the family didn't think much of it. Dogs dig, it's just what they do. They assumed Max was simply being playful, maybe following a scent of rabbit, or perhaps trying to dig up a bone he had buried and forgotten weeks ago. It wasn't unusual for him to get a little dirty now and then, especially in the spring when the soil was soft. So they brushed it off with a smile and let him carry on. But as the days turned into a week and then two, his behavior started to shift from harmless fun to something far more concerning. Max became more and more obsessed with that one specific corner of the yard. He wouldn't just dig for a few minutes and move on. He would stay there for hours, sometimes refusing to come inside even when it rained. His digging grew more frantic, more desperate. He tore at the dirt with such force that it left his paws raw and bleeding. The family tried everything. They filled in the hole, placed heavy objects over it, even fenced it off. But Max would find a way around every obstacle. He'd whine, scratch, and circle the area anxiously whenever he couldn't get to it. And when they finally gave in and let him return, he'd immediately go back to digging like something was calling to him from beneath the ground. It was no longer just odd. It was disturbing. Something wasn't right, and deep down, they all began to feel it. No matter how many times they tried to stop him, Max refused to give up. It was as if something deep within him was driving him, something urgent, something he couldn't ignore. The family had never seen him like this before. He was no longer the playful, tail-wagging dog they knew. He barely touched his food, no longer showed excitement at the jingle of his leash, and had all but stopped sleeping through the night. Instead, Max spent nearly every waking moment in the yard, his eyes locked on that same patch of ground. He dug furiously, as though the truth he was searching for lay just inches beyond his reach. Dirt flew in every direction, coating his fur and face. His paws, once clean and healthy, were cracked and bleeding. But even as blood mixed with soil, he didn't stop. He didn't even hesitate. The family grew increasingly worried. They tried coaxing him with treats, distracting him with toys, even taking him to the vet. But nothing worked. Max would whimper and pace if they kept him inside, constantly scratching at the door, desperate to return to the yard. Something had taken hold of him, something invisible but powerful. It wasn't normal behavior. It wasn't even animal instinct anymore. It felt like determination, or maybe a warning. As they watched him dig deeper and deeper into the earth, an uneasy feeling crept over them. What was Max trying to tell them? Eventually, the worry became too much to ignore. Max wasn't improving. In fact, he seemed more exhausted, more desperate as the days went on. His eyes were sunken, his body thinner, and he seemed to be running on pure instinct. It was heartbreaking to watch. That's when the owner, still unsure what could possibly be causing his behavior, finally decided to grab a shovel and help. If Max was trying to tell them something, maybe it was time they started listening. The family walked out into the yard together, watching as Max continued his relentless digging. When the owner approached, the dog stepped aside just slightly, still focused, still anxious, but willing to share the task. The ground was noticeably soft in that spot, far looser than the rest of the yard. As the shovel sliced into the earth, the dirt gave way easily, revealing layer after layer that had clearly been disturbed before. Within just a few minutes, the shovel hit something unexpected. Not rock, not root, but something that didn't belong. A dull, thudding sound echoed from beneath the surface. Curious and cautious, the owner knelt down and cleared the dirt by hand. That's when he saw it, a corner of faded, torn fabric, and something solid underneath. The mood shifted instantly. The air felt colder. What they had uncovered wasn't just strange, it was terrifying. As the owner cleared more dirt away with his hands, his fingers brushed against something coarse. Not natural, not soil, not stone. It was a piece of old, rotting tarp, tightly wrapped around something bulky. Max stood frozen nearby, his ears back, eyes locked on the spot, as if he already knew what was hidden there. With a deep breath, the owner pulled back more of the earth, revealing the full outline of the tarp-covered object. It was large, heavy, and it had clearly been buried for quite some time. The edges were stained, discolored by the soil, and as they tugged on one corner to lift it free, a sudden and overwhelming stench hit the air, a foul, sour, almost metallic odor that made everyone recoil instantly. The smell was unmistakable, the smell of death. Now, panicked, the owner and his family carefully unwrapped the tarp layer by layer. That's when the nightmare revealed itself. Underneath the dirt-stained fabric was something pale, lifeless, and horrifyingly human. A body, a real human body, curled and stiff, hidden beneath their backyard all this time. The scene was surreal. No one moved. No one spoke. It felt as if time had stopped, the world holding its breath in stunned silence. How had it ended up here? And who was it? Max didn't move either. He just stared, not in fear, but with a strange calm, as if his job was finally done. The moment the reality set in, the family sprang into action. Shaking, pale, and completely overwhelmed, they rushed back into the house and called the police. Panic filled their voices as they described what they had just uncovered. Within minutes, squad cars arrived, followed by detectives, forensic experts, and crime scene investigators. Yellow tape went up. Neighbors gathered at the edge of the street, and the once quiet backyard turned into a full-scale investigation site. The body was carefully exhumed and taken away for examination. Max was kept inside, away from the chaos, still watching through the window with eyes that seemed to understand far more than they should. Over the next few days, the family waited anxiously for answers. They were questioned thoroughly. Had they seen anything? Heard anything? Had the dog ever acted strangely before? But nothing made sense. They had lived in a house for just under 2 years and had never imagined something like this could be hiding just beneath their feet. Then came the chilling confirmation. Forensics identified the remains as belonging to a woman who had been reported missing nearly 5 years earlier. She had vanished without a trace, her case gone cold, until now. The revelation rocked the entire neighborhood. How had no one known? How had a missing woman ended up buried in an average family's backyard, with no clues, no signs, and no connection? The silence that followed was as loud as the discovery itself. As the investigation unfolded, detectives began digging into the history of the property, and what they discovered was even more unsettling. Records showed that the house had changed hands a few times over the years, but it was the owner who lived there just before Max's family who drew immediate attention. He had moved away abruptly, selling the house under unusual circumstances. A quiet, reclusive man who mostly kept to himself. Neighbors remembered him as polite but distant. Still, no one had ever suspected he might be capable of something so dark. Detectives began connecting the dots. With modern forensic tools and renewed pressure on the cold case, they uncovered evidence that linked the former homeowner directly to the missing woman. They had known each other years before her disappearance. As more information came to light, the pieces began to fall into place. Motive, opportunity, and now, undeniable physical evidence. Eventually, the case broke open. The previous owner was tracked down and taken into custody. Faced with mounting evidence, he confessed. He had buried her body in the yard late one night, thinking the secret would remain hidden forever. And for years it had. But no one counted on Max. The dog with no training and no clue of what he was truly uncovering, had brought justice to a woman who had been forgotten by the system. His instincts had led to the truth, a truth that would have otherwise remained buried. In the days and weeks that followed, word of Max's discovery spread quickly. News outlets picked up the story, and soon the quiet neighborhood was swarmed by reporters, cameras, and curious onlookers. What began as a strange obsession in the backyard had turned into a headline-making event. At the heart of it all was Max, the golden retriever once thought to be just a quirky, playful pup. But now, people saw him differently. He wasn't just a pet. He was a hero, a silent, four-legged detective who had unearthed the truth when no one else could. Local officials recognized him for his role in solving a cold case. The missing woman's family, though heartbroken by the confirmation of her fate, finally had the closure they had waited years for. Through tears, they thanked Max personally, calling him their unexpected angel. The family who owned him couldn't have been more proud. They had always loved Max, but now they looked at him with even deeper admiration and awe. Somehow, he had sensed something hidden, something no human could detect. And he never gave up until someone listened. Max returned to his normal self soon after. The digging stopped. His appetite came back. It was as if, once his mission was complete, peace returned to him. Never underestimate a dog's instincts. Sometimes they carry wisdom and awareness beyond what we can understand. And sometimes they help uncover the truth, no matter how deeply it's buried.